Presenting for our first team, Cheruvu, is Shamitha Kirthi. Originally from India and coming to us from the University of Michigan, Shamitha, how are you doing?
Great. Just a little bit nervous to start off.
Can you give us an idea of what you're going to be presenting today?
So Cheruvu is actually an agriculture precision network. So we use our information, we learn from the farmers, and then we leverage data science to provide site-specific information. That's our vision. That's what we're heading towards right now.
Fantastic. You're going to do a great job.
All right, thank you. Well, should go. Well, good morning. We are Cheruvu. First of all, I really want to thank the judges who've given us a lot of valuable feedback throughout the process, the Wege Foundation for inviting us here in Ferris State University, for hosting us. I'm here today to present our vision. So our vision is to build resilient and sustainable villages by employing data science and helping small farmers improve their decision making. So the problem really is that in India, there are 263 million farmers who farm with 3 acres or less. Every cropping season is a gamble. Seeds, climate, markets are constantly variable. And farming without information, of course, is inherently risky, especially in the context of the changing climate and diminished access to resources. So in May 2015, our team actually conducted a survey of over 1,000 farmers in the Telangana region of southern India. And we had some shocking findings. First of all, 97% of the farmers had never even conducted a soil test. And then when we analyzed the amount of fertilizers they were applying and the yield, we found huge variations both within and among villages. Also, looking at the big picture, when you look at the biggest producer of cotton, which is China, their average yield is about 600 kilograms per acre. But when you look at the average yield in India, it's only about a third of that. So there's definitely, and more worryingly, the problem is farmers get caught in this debt cycle because of so many uncertainties, and worryingly in 2014, 2015, about an average of 15,000 farmers actually commit suicide. So this is a problem that really needs some urgent attention. So our product, like I said, is an precision agriculture network. What do I mean by that? So we are using high-resolution data, information, and insights gathered from our conversations with farmers, and we leverage data science to build site-specific information. And we do this by engaging farmers, local stakeholders. We engage the government. We reach out to farmers, and first, at least in our pilot, what we did was we asked farmers if they were interested in getting more information. And once they, farmers who were willing to participate, we collected yield data and we collected soils data. So our data product, of course, is still underway, and data of such high resolution doesn't exist in India, so the data itself has value in itself. But what we're providing to farmers right now is some high-level soil and nutrient management advice. So once we have the data, what we're doing is we take it to a soil testing lab, we get the results, but more importantly, we're also building a digital network. We're building data for a physical model. So we're mapping the baseline in the region, overlaying climate, soils, and topographical data that will be used in a physical model. And we advise the farmers. So we don't just give them the results of the soil test, we actually present it to them in the local language. We tell them what those results mean for their farm, and we're also trying to influence behavior. Now I have a worksheet here that's in English, so that's how we're trying to nudge behavior by showing farmers comparative nutrient sheets to show them where they stand with the highest yielding farmers as well as the average farmers. So so we're trying to influence behavior. So, and finally, excitingly for us, we actually did market validation this cropping season. We sold our product to over 68 farmers in the local language. So, well, this is quite important, and sorry I forgot to say that. We actually have a local network of field managers who are calling the farmers every week, both to collect data for us and to provide this kind of nutrient management advice. And currently, we have about 3,700 farmers in that pipeline. So the immediate impact. So there's a local study that looks at the current nutrient management practices, and it estimates that you could have up to 66% improved yields just with the basic solution that is telling farmers what they should do or how they should manage their land better. And farmers are also willing to listen. At least some of the farmers that we spoke to do want that information. And we're also currently conducting split plot experiments in the region to see how well our solution works. So how does this fit into the circular economy idea? Now, agriculture by itself the agroeconomic cycle is circular and it's self-reinforcing. But like I said, currently there's a problem with, when you look at it from the human capital perspective. In the past 10 years, more than 1 million farmers in India have quit farming. 50% of them, not because of upward mobility, but because the farming is just not profitable anymore. And like I said, in the extreme cases, it's suicide. So this is definitely a big problem. So Cheruvu, by leveraging our frameworks and tools, basically empowers farmers by giving them information to improve their livelihoods, by providing rural employment and mitigating urbanization. So at every step of the way in the agricultural cycle, right from investing in their infrastructure by conducting a soil test, giving them information when they're farming, you're tracking rural employment, tracking farm practices, right down to what we hope to do in the future is provide market information. We're trying to reinforce the circularity of that system. There is a huge market in India. So there are over 11 million cotton farmers in India, and it's a 1.3 billion revenue industry. And even if looking at our pilot, where 40% of the farmers really wanted this service, we're still talking about an available market of about 4.3 million farmers. And what our vision is to at least reach out to 15% of those farmers. So we have about 650,000 farmers that we can potentially reach out to and provide this service for. So our business model is based on a subscription service. Like I said, over 75% farmers farm with 3 acres or less than 5 acres. So we provide a basic service where we're doing a soil test for them, giving them nutrient advice, giving them comparative assessment, and then advanced product where we're giving like more precision agriculture like information. And 2 years from now, we hope to have a data product where we can give analytics on demand. And like I mentioned before, the value really is that such high-resolution data doesn't really exist in India, including the digitization. So the valuation of our enterprise actually comes from that data and machine learning models that we're developing right now. So basically, the data opens doors to numerous data-driven, site-specific opportunities for farmers, as well as revenue streams for us. So we have a large interdisciplinary team. So we have Aniket, who's a machine learning doctoral student at the University of Michigan, College of Engineering. We have people from the Department of Chemical Engineering at the University of Michigan, Ford School of Public Policy, the School of Natural Resources and Environment, School of Architecture and Urban Planning, and we've had business school students work with us, and this project has been going on since 2015. We also have a fantastic group of advisors who advises right from establishing a sustainable enterprise to looking at decision sciences. So how do we influence farmer behavior to actually helping us design the split plot experiments. Apart from that, we also have mentors in India who help us with site-specific nutrient management advice, and we talk to the local government about how to scale up and so on. We also have a fabulous team on the ground in India. We have Uma Maheshwar, who's the field and operations supervisor, who basically take care of the day-to-day activities, including collecting information and going and talking to farmers, engaging them, learning from them, and giving them advice. So I just want to say that we think we've, Wege Prize especially has encouraged us to do a lot of work so far, but we have a long way to go, and I just want to leave you with this. So right now, we've developed those local networks, and now we're developing the marketing strategy to reach 650,000 farmers from 3,600 farmers and reach over 13,000 villages. We've built a web application for data collection, and we're trying to build a smartphone app for easy scalability. And we have 10 field managers right now, and we're looking to scale up to 250 field managers and 5 software developers. And we couldn't have done all of this without our sponsors and encouragement from the University of Michigan, the Dow Sustainability Fellows Program, the Center for Entrepreneurship, and of course, all the great feedback that we got from the Wege Prize. So thank you.
Wow, that was fascinating. What a team and what an army has been put together to make this project a reality. It's pretty amazing.
Thank you.
I imagine it could just really change somebody's life, the farmer's life and their family.
Yeah, our field supervisor, like I said, is pretty amazing. So he likes to tell us this. Like when we were doing our survey, he actually talked a farmer out of doing something, committing suicide, because he's like help's on its way. But then,
wow.
Yeah, so he's very good at talking to farmers and understanding their problems and things like that. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, so we're hoping that we can have a huge impact on them. Yeah.
That's really meaningful work. Now, did you have a lot of ideas for the Wege Prize, or was this clearly things that you were focused on and your team was focused on, and it was obvious to work on this project?
Yeah, so we've, especially in the School of Natural Resources and Environment, I think the Wege Foundation has been has been funding other studies as well. So we were aware of the prize, and it felt like a good fit for us to actually apply. And like I said, we're looking to grow. We need more sponsors. We need more feedback. So it's always good to apply to new things and grow like that.
I love it. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I think they're still working.
Yeah.
So yesterday you had just gotten to Grand Rapids, right? Did you have a good evening? Did you get to see the city at all?
Not really, because I was trying to. we were working on the presentation. Yeah, but tonight, yeah, for sure.
The pressure's off tonight, right?
Yeah. I think it'll be good to relax.
So back to the project. I mean, where are you in? What did you say? 2015? Is that really when this project started?
Yes, we were actually working on another project in the same area on irrigation tanks, and that's when we did the survey and we realized that there was this problem of inadequate access to information. So it came from that other project. So our team actually has been working in this area for a long time, and that's why we have those connections. So yeah.
That's great. I'm glad it could build on one project can build on the next.
Yeah.
I think they're ready.
Yeah.
Judges.
Thanks.
Yes, a great presentation. But one thing that came to mind to me was the diversifying of the crops. You spoke basically about the cotton production, and I was interested. What are the other options in terms of diversifying the crops?
Right. So we decided to focus on cotton because that's basically, especially when you think about farmer suicides, that's the crop that comes off often. And I'm not saying that's usually only because of farming practices. That also has to do with the volatility of markets. So we focus on cotton right now because we have the expertise to do so in India, and we have big enough of a network where getting data will help. We are looking to diversify, but I don't think we have a strategy to diversify yet. And as I pointed out, the cotton market is pretty huge. We plan to reach out to that market first. So that's where we're at.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I guess I'll go next. Thank you, great presentation, and I'm really touched with that you're addressing this problem. Like the suicides of farmers is such a devastating thing, and then those numbers. So I really appreciate that you're looking at how to help the small farmers and not let everything get taken over by huge agribusiness operations. But on that note, one of the questions that I had was the limited familiarity I have with this issue. I have heard that one of the problems of the suicides is that farmers are going into debt purchasing chemicals and seed from large agribusiness companies. I didn't see that mentioned as a contributing factor in your literature, and I was wondering how your solution helps farmers build more self-sufficiency so they won't get caught in these cycles of debt.
Yeah, so one thing is that providing them information with all the options that's available. Like I think during my presentation, I did talk about the variability in seeds. That is a big problem. One solution that we thought of was going through seed and fertilizer companies instead of directly selling to farmers. But at present, we think there's more value in talking directly to farmers, explaining their options, and making them. I think giving them access to that information will empower them to make better decisions. But you're right, we need to think about how the bigger agribusiness environment kind of impacts this. But for now, I think information is powerful, and that's where we're going with this.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I applaud you for being in the field and actually learning by doing. You're prototyping, you're implementing, and that's obviously informing what you're doing. My questions are all about, you talk a lot about soil and weather and the data that you're collecting and sharing around those aspects. What about technique? Is there a difference in technique between, let's say, the high yield in China versus India and the yield differences even locally? And if so, what are the other, what's the role of other factors? And then how are you sharing that to help farmers bring up their yields beyond just soil and weather?
Yeah. So the high resolution data that I was talking about is actually daily and weekly data where we ask farmers exactly what they did. So how much manure did you apply? Did you till the land? Do you have access to irrigation? So we do have that high resolution data, but like I said, our data product is under development. So it's a machine learning model, and because such high resolution data has never been collected, we need to collect it, anonymize it, and we're hoping what we get then we can compare the highest performing farmers, see what they're doing differently, and kind of pass on the wisdom, so to say. So that's.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Shamitha. In the last round of feedback, my feedback to your team was that I didn't see much circular economy in your solution. Mm-hmm. And I know that you talked about it obviously in your presentation just now, but I guess I haven't heard anything from your team around the long-term viability of soil, mm-hmm. or around the biodiversity, for example, mm-hmm. Or moving beyond chemical inputs for the farm. How do you respond to those points?
Right. So I told you about the survey that we did with 1,000 farmers. So let's talk about soil first. So the government of India actually subsidizes urea, which is a nitrogen fertilizer, of course. And what we found in our survey was there was a huge variation in how much farmers kind of applied to their soil. So some farmers apply a lot more urea than is necessary, especially because it's cheap. So I think one way that we'd be addressing the circularity of soil, the biological cycle, is by telling them how much is actually required, kind of balancing that cycle out. So, and I know we didn't mention it, but as for I think that could also help reduce the chemical inputs, really. We're also we're talking to other institutes within India, like the Cotton Institute, who are interested in other practices like organic farming. But right now, our priority is to improve the well-being of the farmers. So right now, we're just trying to improve that yield, and the quickest way to do that is, I think, to tell them how to manage their nutrients better. So that's where we're going now. but we do want to address the rest of the, address biodiversity, the soil. We're looking at it, but hopefully we'll get to it soon.
Is there a risk,
Yeah.
sorry, follow up
Yeah.
quickly, is there a risk that you are promoting short-term solutions?
So one thing that we're doing is when we talk to farmers and we give them information, we're also going to give them alternatives. So that's something that our field managers can talk to them about it. While it does look like a short-term solution, we are talking about farmers who are in debt and they need to kind of increase we just don't want them to go into that debt cycle for now. So yeah, it does look like a short-term solution now, but you're right, we need to think about the long-term viability, long-term sustainability, and that's our vision, that's what we want to build. So thanks for that. We will kind of think about it more clearly, of course, in the future. Yeah, thanks.
I have a
Yeah.
related follow-up question.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm wondering, this is kind of speculation, you can tell me if you think if it fits, but the data sets that you're collecting, would they help you identify ways to make that transition to organic farming or to less practices that require less off-farm inputs? I mean, are you collecting the types of data that would be needed to inform that transition?
So actually, no, because we don't have too many organic farmers in our network yet. They do use some manure, but most of them are using chemical inputs. But the idea is to transition to it. Maybe when we scale up our product, we'll have more people who use organic farming or other sustainable methods of farming, so we'll have more information and we can learn from those farmers and kind of inform the rest. So, yeah.
Sorry, I'll let
No,
Michael go
no.
ahead.
Yeah.
These are great questions from my colleagues. My questions are about scale. So I'm wondering if you guys behind the scenes I've got a few questions, so
Yeah.
building off this topic. If you've done an economic analysis or model to figure out how many subscribers do you need, how much revenue are you going to get, how do you deal with retention? Because once they figure out sustainable farming and their yields go up and they start making more money, do they need you anymore?
Right.
And then I'll follow up with some more questions.
Right. So I think I had never mind. There was the financial model. So what we worked with was, sorry, that's the, all right. So we have identified like a lot of revenue streams. So the first thing is to actually, I guess, very site-specific advice, the advanced analytics, something like climate.org here or farm logs, which actually work with farmers on a daily basis. So we've thought of other revenue streams as well. Like, I think the biggest value is in the data that we have. Those could be potential revenue streams that form the majority of our revenues, but we also think having a subscription-based service will mean that farmers will value the information better, and that might actually influence their behavior change.
Yeah, it's trying to figure out what's that hook that keeps them going. Because
Right.
I subscribe to a service to find a babysitter, because I don't live with a bunch of family.
Right.
And I found a babysitter, and then I'm done. I don't need to subscribe anymore. And
Right.
so I wonder, if I may, one other question, which is, you had mentioned smartphone application as sort of a primary interface to collect this data. And having worked in technology, I know that India is not a really developed country in this area, and I wonder, is a smartphone too expensive for the farmers to own and subscribe to for the service, and then to provide the data to you?
So I think we're working off on the potential for smartphones to expand in India. But right now, what happens is our field managers actually call them, and they all have cell phones. So they call them and they enter their data into a web app. So depending on how smartphones take off in that community, we're thinking a smartphone app might be the best way to go, or we'd go the traditional route and have field managers talk to them, which is also something that we're exploring.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, judges. Nice job. Congratulations. Let's hear it for Shamitha and her team. Thank you.
Thank you.